Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is the Echols Unlimited podcast. I'm your host, Terrence Echols, and this is my 8th episode of the Echols Unlimited podcast. I am so glad to be back. I've taken a few weeks off. I haven't been able to come in and give you guys the content that you deserve, so I'm glad to be back. I'm glad that you're listening, and I'm just glad to be a fan of the greatest league in the world, let alone the greatest sport in the world. I've just been amazed by what I've seen come out of the NBA in the past few weeks. This free agency period was probably one of the craziest ones we've seen in recent memory. That's not a bad thing. For no reason should anyone be worried about the NBA next year and all the player movement and everything. I just think that it's great for the players' brands. It's great to see them earn some money. It's great to see players take more control of the league that is so powerful and is becoming even more popular, not only in the United States, but in other countries as well. So it's great to see the NBA be able to stay relevant during this time. It's the off season, yet the NBA has been making headlines all throughout the summer. So it's great to see that. It's great to see Summer League go down. I'll probably give an episode on my thoughts on this, how the Summer League went, the incoming players into the NBA, how a lot of the rookies looked, how a lot of the guys who are looking to gain contracts looked. I'll talk about that maybe in a future episode. But today's episode, we are going to talk about my thoughts on free agency. Now that the dust has settled, we're going to talk about what I think about most of the players who made their moves during the free agency, who they signed with, the teams that offered them, and I'm just going to go off of the same list that I used a few weeks ago when I did my free agency preview, the NBC Sports Boston list. I'm going to go and give my thoughts on every player that I discussed in the previous episode. I'm going to discuss in this episode, and I'm going to talk about where they went and what's going to happen, how this NBA season is looking. And from my estimation, it's looking very, very interesting. It's looking like the league has achieved more balance. I've always been more of a player balance. Well, I've always wanted more balance between the conferences. I feel like the Eastern Conference has lacked a lot of star power, while the Western Conference has more stars. And it's always great whenever I see like a star from the Eastern Conference or a star from the Western Conference come to the Eastern Conference, such as Kevin Durant and how he did that this year. It's great because I just want to see more balance between the conferences. Even though it doesn't really matter in terms of the All-Star game anymore because of the better format that they use where players are drafted by the team captains. I think that is a great added bonus to the All-Star game. But just the fact that there aren't as many stars in the Eastern Conference. So, as time goes on, I hope that more players will make the jump, and more teams will make the jump towards getting the more talented players to come to the Eastern Conference and play for the teams that are represented over here on the eastern part of the United States. So, without further ado, we're just going to get into it. We're going to start with the big fish. The biggest fish on the market this offseason was Kawhi Leonard, the wing forward from the Toronto Raptors last year, Finals MVP. He had played for the Spurs throughout his career until a couple of mishaps happened, a couple of team and personal issues happened between him, in which he requested a trade, and the Spurs gave him that trade to the Toronto Raptors, and many people thought that was just to spite him, the Spurs, but it turned out pretty well. It turned out to be a great deal for the Raptors. They got a championship out of him, and they were able to help grow their brand throughout the entire country of Canada as well as America. So it was a win-win scenario for everyone. Everyone won, but the country of Canada was really trying to get Kawhi to come back to Toronto, and Obviously, he decided not to. He decided to sign with the Los Angeles Clippers in the biggest power move of all power moves I have ever seen in the NBA, and keeping the NBA world on its heels for close to about a week. He made the decision to sign to sign with the Clippers, I think almost a week after free agency had started. So people were just speculating throughout the entire week. Everyone was either going to say he was going to the Lakers or he was going to the Raptors. I thought it was a smart move on his part to keep the Lakers from signing other guys because they only had enough money to sign him. And everyone knew that the Lakers had a good chance of signing him, but if they had signed him, the league would have been unbalanced, and the Lakers probably would have been too good for the NBA to be a competitive league anymore. Like how it's been the past couple of years with Kevin Durant on the Golden State Warriors. I feel like the same thing would have happened had Kawhi Leonard signed with the Los Angeles Lakers. Even though the Lakers didn't have a great season last year, they didn't win. They weren't coming off a historically great season. They added enough star power to sort of stack the decks in their favor in a way that I don't think we've ever seen in NBA history. Like, you could talk about the 2010 Miami Heat and how they had 3 superstars on their team. Yeah, but the way that team was constructed, I feel like they weren't overwhelmingly good. And that was proven by the fact that they only were able to win 2 out of 4 NBA championships. Like how the Golden State Warriors were only able to win 3 out of 5. So I think that the fact that Kawhi was able to make this decision, he was able to bring Paul George with him, he was able to bring balance back to the NBA. I thought it was a great move overall. It would have been crazy to see him with the Lakers, but I think he made the best decision. I'm glad that he's happy, and I'm looking forward to seeing the rivalry in Staples Centers because the Lakers made some good moves as well. The Lakers have a good roster for this upcoming season. They have a great team. They have a great coach. LeBron James obviously leading the team on the floor. Frank Vogel leading the team from the sideline as the head coach. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic. I'm looking forward to watching how the Lakers and the Clippers are perceived both in LA and throughout the country by NBA fans, because you look at the way these two teams have been constructed, it seems as if they were able to put together championship rosters throughout the span of a couple of weeks. And that is great to see. LA is obviously the biggest market. The second biggest market behind New York City. So it's great for the NBA in terms of the money and how it can grow, and just it's great. It's great for the NBA for many reasons, and I'm just glad that he was able to make a decision and to where he's happy. Now, another big fish was Kevin Durant. However, he has an asterisk next to his name because of the fact that he can't play next season. He suffered a torn Achilles, I think we all saw in Game 5 of the NBA Finals. It was too bad to see. It was a tough injury for him to go out on, and I just hope that he recovers well from the injury. I think, in my opinion, it was a solid move because I'm glad he's no longer in Golden State. The way he went to Golden State and everything just didn't sit right with me. I was never a fan of the fact that he was playing for them and the fact that he was winning. I wanted him to win, but not in that way. So I'm just glad that he's made the decision to come to Brooklyn, and now he has a new challenge ahead of him. He has to overcome the adversity of going through the injury. He has to overcome the adversity of dealing with the New York media. He has to overcome the adversity of gelling with a guy like Kyrie Irving, who has been a controversial teammate in the past, but I don't look at Kyrie Irving as being a threat to their success. I think that the fact that these two teamed up on the same team is good for the NBA because it provides the NBA with another duo that is going to bring championship aspirations to a team that hasn't had them in quite a few years. So the Brooklyn Nets are looking great. People are worried about Kevin Durant and how he's going to be able to adjust to the New York market. At the end of the day, you have to realize Kevin Durant is a basketball player, and he is one of the best we've ever seen. At the end of the day, I know I keep saying it, but it's really just all about basketball. He's a hooper. He loves to play. He has this amazing ability. He has this amazing body. He has this amazing knack for making shots and making plays on defense and setting his teammates up and just being a great leader on and off the court, that I don't see any situation where the New York media gets to him to where he's overwhelmed. I think that it was a great move because now to be in New York City, because now he has an opportunity to make some business decisions that put him closer to where he can grow his media empire. He can grow his brand. He can grow in a bigger market than Golden State, which is crazy to hear, or crazy because Golden State is already a pretty big market with the two cities, Oakland and San Francisco, feeding into that team. So it's great to see Kevin Durant go to a place where he's happy. I'm glad he's no longer with the Warriors, making the NBA unbalanced anymore. So I just hope that he has a good recovery and that he comes back ready to play. So now Kyrie Irving, the man who joined Kevin Durant in Brooklyn. I don't know. You could say Kevin Durant joined Kyrie. You could say Kyrie joined Kevin Durant. But in reality, they both joined the Brooklyn Nets to play with each other, to compete for a championship, and to be happy. They didn't seem happy in their former situations. I think Kyrie seemed to be a little bit more unhappy than Kevin Durant, but I never liked him in Boston. I wanted him to stay with LeBron James and take over the reins in the team as LeBron got older, and I wanted to see the Cleveland Cavaliers. I wanted to see him play for the Cavaliers for his entire career. And of course that didn't happen. He wanted his own team. He got a taste of it in Boston, and it was crazy to see how the media just flipped on him. I've never been a fan of Boston. I do not like the Boston Celtics. I'm a Philadelphia 76ers fan. I just hated the fact that the media turned on him so quickly, and how he was able to switch. He just switched his mentality. He switched his mindset coming into the year. He said, all right, I'm going to see how this goes. I would like to come back. Let's see how this goes. It didn't go well. Towards the middle of the season, he started to talk about how he wasn't going to talk to him on July 1st. He said he didn't owe anybody anything. So people sort of understood the fact that he probably didn't have the same "I'll come back if you have me" attitude that he'd had at the beginning of the season. But that doesn't mean that you can just turn on him and start to say bad things about him and start to say he's not committed to the team. Because you look at all these players, and especially a guy like Kyrie Irving, who's a basketball junkie. He is a weirdo. Like, he loves basketball. Like, he plays so hard. He trains so hard. For a guy his size and his athleticism, he's not the typical basketball player, yet he is one of the best players in the world because he has a drive and he has the skills to play at such a high level. So the fact that people were coming at him and saying he wasn't committed to the team and saying he was a bad leader and all this, like, I hated to see that. And I just want to see him happy in the New York media. People say that he's going to have trouble too, like how they both have had trouble with the media, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving in the past. I think Kyrie will be fine. He already played in Boston. He's already used to playing in a big market, and the way they treated him towards the end of the season last year, I don't think it can get much worse than that. So now let me get into his replacement, Kemba Walker. My thoughts when I first saw this, let me step away from the mic, were, what are you doing? I was so upset to see that Kemba Walker was going to sign with the Boston Celtics. I did not want to see another high caliber player go to Boston. I thought that they had young talent already, that they were going to continue to develop, and that they were going to continue to grow and to work into a great team. But no, that's not the way things went. I can't stand how the Boston Celtics are run. I think they're a well-run organization on the surface, but I don't think that they treat their players the way that I believe players should be treated. They don't really allow them to control the way I like to see players control their narrative and their lives and their careers. So you look at a couple examples of just the way players, how Boston is perceived by many players. You look at the fact that a guy like Isaiah Thomas, they basically ruined his career. Let him play with an injury that they knew was going to derail him if he played through it, but they let him play through it. They let him give his heart out to the city, and then they traded him to a team to get Kyrie Irving. They traded him to the Cavaliers, and Isaiah Thomas never ended up getting that big contract extension that he so wholeheartedly deserved. This guy is 5'8", 5'9" on a good day. He was an NBA All-Star. He gave you 29 points a game. You were the number one seed in the playoffs, and you trade him because you want the younger, the more flashy, the bigger star in Kyrie Irving. And people say, "Oh, you can't just say that. Everyone would have made that move." Yes, but it's about the principle. It's about the man that he was. I think that Boston might have still had the trade chips to ship off and get a guy like Kyrie Irving, a guy of his caliber, and keep a guy like Isaiah Thomas, but that's just not the way it worked. I just, it's sad to see how they ruined his career. You look at a guy like Anthony Davis, it looked like it would be a perfect situation, him to team up with Kyrie Irving. The possibilities coming off of the pick and roll with Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis were limitless. However, he said to Boston, he told Boston, "Don't even think about trading for me." So the fact that he did that should have been another red flag. And then the fact that the Boston media and the people in Boston flipped on Kyrie Irving towards the middle of the year. I had friends telling me that they didn't even want Kyrie to resign towards the end of the season when he wasn't performing well in the playoffs. It's sad to see a guy like Kemba Walker go to Boston. I think they'll be fine. They'll be a great team next year. Should finish top 3 in the Eastern Conference. So I'm not worried about Boston as a team. I'm just worried about Kemba Walker. I'm worried about how the media is going to treat him if things don't go right. And me being a Sixers fan, the more talent on Boston, the tougher it's going to be for the Sixers. But, it's fine. It's good. I embrace competition. I embrace the fact that the NBA is a very competitive league and that the players are competitive and that the players are driven and that Kemba Walker made this decision that he thought was best for him. So I wish him the best in Boston. Now, Klay Thompson, we all knew that he was going to go to Golden State. We all knew that he was going to return. He even posted the iconic scene from The Wolf of Wall Street where he told him he wasn't leaving on his Instagram, and I thought that was hilarious. I thought that Klay Thompson's sense of humor has always been on point, and that he was drafted by the Warriors, so I have nothing. There's nothing wrong with this. He got paid. He was drafted by the Warriors. He teams up with Steph Curry for another year, so I'm just hoping that he recovers well from his injury, his torn ACL. I feel like he's going to come back and be fine. It doesn't really have a huge effect on his game. Maybe lateral movement because he's a great defender, but I don't see that being a huge limiting factor in the rest of his career. So I hope he comes back. I hope the Warriors can compete for another championship now that the NBA is more balanced, and so that I feel like they earn it like they did in 2015 when they earned their first NBA championship. They still earned the last 2, but it didn't feel the same. It didn't feel like they did overcoming a historic performance like LeBron James had in the 2015 NBA Finals. So it'll be nice to see that Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson trio and what they're able to do next season. So Jimmy Butler. He decided to sign with the Miami Heat in a sign and trade that the Sixers were able to get Josh Richardson out of, which is a very good move. I like Josh Richardson's fit on the 76ers. I think he's Jimmy Butler to a lesser degree. He's a guy who can defend, he can knock down shots. Jimmy Butler obviously is a great playmaker. He's a more elite defender. He's a more elite shot maker. He can hit game winners. He can do pretty much everything you want out of a star player on the court. I thought he should get paid. I'm glad he got paid. He didn't get paid as much as he could have, though. He turned down, you look at the details of his deal, and he turned down a title contending opportunity, because people forget that the Sixers were one shot away, 4 bounces around the rim away from giving Toronto a run for their money in overtime. People look at that Game 7 and they see, oh, the Raptors won that Game 7, and then they beat the Warriors and they beat the Bucks, but people forget how Philly had them down 2-1 in that series at one point, and how Philly was able to rally and come back from 3-2, tied at 3-3 in the series, and eventually lost on a buzzer beater that rolled all around the rim. I've never seen a shot bounce around a rim like that to win the series, but it's fine. I've gotten over it. People wanted the Sixers to run it back one more time. That's just the Philly mentality. I thought Jimmy Butler embraced that well. I thought he fit well with the team, but the fact that he turned down the 5-year max extension, as well as a chance to compete for another championship, just to be his own man in Miami, which I'm sure he's more happy. There's no state income tax, I don't believe, so I'm sure he's happy about that too. But I'm just glad that he found a place where he's going to be happy and he's going to enjoy life, and he can just go there, and hopefully, you never know, they'll bring another player there. If they bring another player into Miami, they may have a squad on their hands. They have some good young pieces, and Tyler Hero and Justice Winslow and Bam Adebayo, so we'll see how that goes. I'm excited to watch Jimmy be the number one player on the team again. He's a great player, he's a great guy, and I'm just happy for him. So DeMarcus Cousins, I like the fact that he signed with the Lakers. I thought that he was going to sign with the Lakers the entire year. It's just I didn't like the amount of money he signed for. He ended up signing for $3.5 million, which is way under the amount that he deserves. People forget he is a 5-time All-Star. He's an All-NBA caliber player. And for a while, before Joel Embiid made this giant ascension and Nikola Jokic started to play well as well, DeMarcus Cousins was a clear-cut favorite for the best center in the NBA. He fit in today's modern NBA with his ability to play make and knock down threes. He was never really a strong defender, but then again, who in the NBA is nowadays? So I thought he gave some great performances in the finals. I thought that he showed great resilience and great effort this year, coming back from the Achilles injury, playing well for the Golden State Warriors, and then rupturing his quad in his second career playoff game, which you just feel for a guy like that. So I'm hoping that he can play a full season healthy and then get paid after that. I think he deserves a huge extension. But I'm not worried about him financially because he signed with Puma. Everyone knows that last summer Puma was handing out fat checks to players. So I'm sure he's still paid well. I'm sure he's still living a lavish life. But it's sad to see a guy of his caliber have to take these tiny little deals just to play on these contending teams, to where he'll have the platform to be able to earn a big contract. So the next one on this list, Tobias Harris. I'm glad Philly kept him. I honestly would rather have him than Jimmy Butler. I know hindsight is 2020 because of the fact that he actually did sign and Jimmy Butler didn't. I don't know how my emotions would be swayed if it were the other way around, but I'm glad to have him back in Philly. I think he fits well with Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. He's that guy who can lead the team in scoring while Joel can focus on being the dominant presence he is on offense and defense. and Ben Simmons can focus on setting his teammates up and continuing to be a great defender that he is while he improves offensively from a scoring standpoint, I think that the three of them fit well together, and I think the pieces that the Sixers have coming off the bench, the rookies that they have, fit well with them as well. They have some defenders, they have some shot makers, they have a couple of backup bigs who are pretty good, and Kylo Quinn and a guy like Jonah Bolden who's still improving. So I think the Sixers are in good hands. I think Tobias Harris was worth the $180 million that he's going to be getting paid over the next 5 years. I think he's improved every year since he's been in the NBA, so you don't have to question his work ethic or anything like that. He fits well because he's a catch and shoot guy. He can knock down a shot off the dribble, maybe one or two dribbles. That's probably a part of his game that he's going to have to improve, but I don't see him really having to do that with a guy like Ben Simmons being able to set him up. It'll be very exciting to see what the 76ers are able to accomplish with Tobias Harris back, and it'll be very exciting to see what he will be able to do now with a bigger role on such a talented team. Now, the next person on the list is Kristaps Porzingis, and this is an interesting case because we haven't seen him in the NBA for 2 seasons. He tore his ACL towards the beginning of the season 2 years ago. I believe it was the 2017-2018 NBA season, and the fact that we haven't seen him since then should be concerning because he likely hasn't been playing against competition at that level. He's had a few off the court issues that he's had to deal with lately. So it's a bit concerning, his injury, the fact that he had such a major injury and that it took him so long to come back and play, but also with the off the court stuff. But he signed back with the Mavericks, where he got traded to at the trade deadline last season. The Knicks decided to trade their only good player for DeAndre Jordan, who ended up going to the Nets with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and Dennis Smith Jr., who is still with the Knicks, but hasn't really made that leap to becoming anything past a borderline starting point guard in the NBA. Hopefully he'll be able to get better and to continue to work on his game, and I'm just hoping for the best for the Knicks, honestly, at this point. That's a team, that's a franchise that you just sort of root for now because they've gone through so much. Their fans have gone through so much. Everyone who has remained loyal to them has been through a lot over the past few years, and I just hope that they finally are able to get one offseason right. They were able to sign a lot of smaller contracts, guys like Julius Randle, Bobby Portis, Taj Gibson. They were able to sign some good pieces on championship caliber teams, but no one who's really going to put them over the hump of being a lower level team in the NBA. So the fact that Kristaps is coming back to the Mavericks, I believe, in my opinion, he's probably like the 17th best player in the NBA, according to my list, which I'll get into in a few episodes from now. I'm going to give my updated top 20 best players in the NBA. Look forward to hearing that. So I think the Mavs made some pretty good moves around him and Luka Doncic. I think the signing of Seth Curry was huge. Him coming back to Dallas, the place where he had originally earned his money, playing for them a couple seasons ago, and playing very well. So the fact that you have Seth Curry, you have Luka Doncic, you have Kristaps Porzingis, you have some other pieces here and there, Justin Jackson, some shooters that can aid them well, that can Jalen Brunson, that can help out in terms of ball handling, and they'll be an exciting team. Mark Cuban's a great owner. He's obviously a very vocal and very involved owner. And Rick Carlisle, in my opinion, is such an amazing coach. I think that he's one of the most underrated coaches in the NBA. I think that he will continue to grow and help these guys develop into fantastic players. I'm looking forward to watching the Mavericks over the next few years. Now, the next guy I have is DAngelo Russell. That was my least favorite move of the NBA free agency. The fact that he wasn't able to choose where he went, the fact that he was involved in a sign and trade for Kevin Durant, and that he's now with the Golden State Warriors. It upsets me a lot. It really does. I don't know how it works, but I don't know why the Brooklyn Nets would sign and trade him, even though they knew they were going to get Kevin Durant regardless. So I don't understand why they would try to help the Golden State Warriors, the team that had just been to 5 straight NBA Finals, the team that had won 3 out of those 5 NBA Finals, and the team that frankly didn't need any help. They needed players subtracted from their team in order for the NBA to become a better league. So I don't understand how it happens or how that works out in terms of the money. I don't know how it works out for either side, but I'm just, I don't know what to say. He had a great year in Brooklyn. He's now on the Warriors, and so when he first got traded over there in the sign and trade, everyone's saying, "Oh, he's just going to be a trade asset for the Warriors to go and get someone who fits better in their system." Now, I hate when people just put that label on the kid. Oh, he's just there to be traded. Like, why would you continue to why is that the narrative surrounding this kid? And I know it's a lot of the ESPN and the Fox Sports guys who are considered experts in the field, and I know that a lot of people are saying, yeah, he's not meant to be there. It's not going to happen. He doesn't fit in their culture. He doesn't fit in their scheme. So why would you sign and trade for him? You know, why would you not even try to make it so he can be integrated into the system and so that you can be successful with him before you ship him off to someplace else? People are saying he's just going to last for half of a season. He's just some talent to pair with Steph Curry so that the Warriors don't have a complete fail to the beginning of their season. And I hate that. How do you think that makes DAngelo Russell feel to hear people say, "Oh yeah, you're just nothing but a guy who's going to be traded in a few months. You're not here for the long run, so you might as well get as much as you can out of such a well-run organization and such a well-run franchise, because you're not going to be here in a few months. We're going to get someone who we need more." And I think that's not good for a guy like DAngelo Russell, a guy who's been through so much in his young NBA career. We have to realize the man is 23 years old. That's not very old in terms of life. Most 23-year-olds don't have any part of their life figured out. Normally they're about 1 or 2 years removed from college at that point in their lives, a regular 22-year-old in American society. So the fact that he's been in the spotlight for these 4 years since he's been in the NBA is that has to be tough for a guy like him. You've seen him. He slipped up a couple of times. He snitched on Nick Young and his cheating. And obviously, that's not what you want to do. He betrayed his trust. He put his friend out there, and he didn't conduct himself in the proper manner in that situation. However, Nick Young shouldn't have been cheating in the first place. But this is a basketball show. We're not really going to get into all that. Another situation he had where he had snuck marijuana onto the plane. He tried to sneak it on using, I think it was a can of iced tea. He tried to get marijuana onto a plane while he was with the Brooklyn Nets. This was during this past season. And, of course, guys like Stephen A. Smith had a field day with that. The fact that a guy was trying to smuggle marijuana on using something that wouldn't have been allowed on the plane in the first place. So it's tough to see a guy like that have to go through what he's been through and have such a big spotlight on him, especially when he was in Los Angeles. I think he's been able to grow and he's been able to mature not only as a player but as a man. And I just hope for the best. I hope that he can find, if that situation isn't in Golden State, I hope they can find a situation to where he can continue to build on his star status, because is he a talented player. He is a talented shooter. He is a talented passer. He's great coming off the pick and roll. I think that DAngelo Russell will be a very good household name in the NBA for the next few seasons. So the next person we have is Nikola Vucevic. So I'm just glad he got paid. He came back to Orlando. The Magic were a playoff team last year. He was an all-star. He's in an ideal situation for him. they're not going to compete for an NBA championship anytime soon, but the fact that he got paid, the fact that they're a playoff team, that should be enough. They made a few moves. They got Mo Harkless, or they traded for Mo Harkless, and then they traded him somewhere else, I believe. They got El Farouk Aminu. So we'll see what they're able to do down in Orlando. I think that they're a team that can continue to grow. You never know what could happen with Nikola Vucevic and them. So I just hope that he's happy. I'm glad he was able to make a large amount of money. I'm glad that the Magic were able to provide him with that. I hope he serves to be a great role model for a guy like Mo Bamba. I hope he helps him develop into a great young big in the NBA as well. So shout out to Nikola Vucevic. I know he's making a lot of money now, and I know that he'll be great staying in Orlando. So the next guy we have is Chris Middleton. I'm happy for him. Since he came into the league, Chris Middleton has always been one of my favorite players. I think he's a great shooter. He's a great defender. He's a perfect player to fit alongside Giannis Antetokounmpo, who isn't the strongest shooter. He is a great defender, of course, and he's great at making plays for his teammates. He's great at making plays for himself. But the fact that Chris Middleton can spot up and shoot at an all-star level, I think that's great. I think he's one of those 3-and-D guys, but he's a 3-and-D plus. I wouldn't say he's quite at the level of Klay Thompson, of a guy like Klay Thompson, but I think he's above like a guy like Danny Green or someone like that. I think he brings a little bit more to the table rather than just your standard 3-and-D player. I think he can operate out of the low post a little bit better. He's a little bit longer, taller guard. He's about 6'8", so I like Chris Middleton. I'm glad he got paid. I'm happy for him. The Bucks are still a legitimate contender, so hoping for the best. So Al Horford is an exciting guy for me as a Philly fan because he signed with the Philadelphia 76ers. So what he did was he turned down a $30 million contract extension that was offered to him. I think it was like a qualifying offer that was extended to him by the Boston Celtics in his team option. So the fact that he turned down $30 million just to sign with another team where he's making about that, like it's about the same amount of money, maybe a little bit. I think he's making a little bit less with Philly. I didn't quite get the numbers for this segment. I just wanted to talk. But if you look up the numbers, I don't think he's making much more or less than he would have made in Boston. So it was really just about him going to a place where he wanted to be happy, or a place where he fit well. He's going back to his natural position. If we remember Al Horford in college, where he won 2 national championships with the Florida Gators, he played alongside Corey Brewer and Joakim Noah. Joakim Noah was the center on that Florida Gators team coached by Billy Donovan, and Al Horford was the power forward. So Al Horford has been playing out of position the past few years. I've liked him while he was in Atlanta. He was playing some power forward, some center. It really depended on who the Hawks had on the roster that year. I really liked him there. He was an all-star there. I thought he was a great stretch big. He was one of the first guys to really expand his range out to the three-point line and start shooting more threes as the NBA has progressed and how basketball as a sport has grown. And now he's with when he was with Boston, I obviously didn't like him because he was the only guy in the NBA who could effectively defend Joel Embiid. So the fact that they are now paired in a front court gives them a crazy front court of Joel Embiid, Al Horford, and Tobias Harris. All 3 guys can shoot the 3. All 3 guys have the potential to defend. Tobias Harris is not quite a strong defender yet, but all 3 guys are of decent age. Al Horford's on the older side at 33 years of age, but centers don't normally age as much as guards do. Centers can normally have long, outstanding careers. You look at a guy like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, a guy that took care of himself throughout his entire career, and was able to play 20-plus years, and was able to become the NBA's all-time leading scorer. And I don't see anyone touching Kareem for at least a few years. You look at a guy like Kevin Durant, you look at a guy like LeBron, they might be able to touch him. But his record has stood for about 30 years as the NBA's all-time leading scorer. So big men can play for a while. It'll be interesting to see what Al Horford and Joel Embiid are able to do in the front court in Philly. I'm happy for him. I'm glad that he's now playing for the best team, the better team in my opinion, in the Atlantic Division of the Eastern Conference. And I look forward to watching them play this year. That's my favorite team. So I'm optimistic that they made the right roster moves. I'm optimistic that Ben Simmons will develop as an offensive player and start being able to take and make more jump shots. I'm optimistic that Elton Brand has put together a great team for this coming season. So the next guy, one of my favorite players in the NBA, obviously, you know, I've stated it a few times in the past that I am a huge Virginia Cavaliers men's basketball fan. So obviously that translates to me being a huge Malcolm Brogdon fan. And it was crazy to see how a guy who was a restricted free agent coming into this free agency was signed so quickly by a team like the Indiana Pacers. And you look at the Indiana Pacers and you're like, they have a guy just like Malcolm Brogdon. They have a guy in Victor Oladipo who is an older guy. He did 4 years in college. He came into the NBA with some expectations, not many, and he's been able to grow his game as he's been in the NBA, and now he's a star player. I think Victor Oladipo can be the second option on a championship caliber team. I think he has the potential to be one of those guys who can defend at a high level and who can also make plays for himself and for his teammates. He's a decent shooter. I wouldn't say he's an amazing shooter quite yet, but I think Malcolm Brogdon is the same type of player, like locks up on defense. They're both about 6'4", 6'5". They're both about combo guard position wise. I think Victor Oladipo is more athletic and he's more of a playmaker, and Malcolm Brogdon is less athletic. He can still defend, but he's more of a shooter. So I think they play well. They're going to pair well together in the backcourt, and I wouldn't sleep on them in the backcourt if I were any NBA team, and I wouldn't sleep on the Pacers in general. The fact that they still have Sabonis in the front court, they still have Miles Turner, and they look good. I think the Pacers will be an interesting team to watch now that they have Malcolm Brogdon. Now, for these last few guys, I'm not going to go as long as I did on them, but I just wanted to say a few things about Brook Lopez. People know he's a shooter. Okay, so he should be valuable for the Bucks for the next few years. I think the Bucks will be a good team. Even though they lost Malcolm Brogdon, I think the fact that they were able to re-sign Chris Middleton, who's a good shooter, re-sign Brook Lopez as a good shooter, to pair with Giannis, who's going to improve as a shooter, I think that not only will just improve their spacing and improve their effectiveness in the playoffs to where we saw them sort of vulnerable against the Toronto Raptors this year in those 4 straight losses that they had. But I think they'll be all right. So the next guy is Marc Gasol. I think when he signed, he expected Kawhi to come back, and now he just assumes a bigger role in Toronto. He's used to being the number one option on a playoff team. He probably won't have to do exactly that with guys like Pascal Siakam and Kyle Lowry. The Raptors will still be a formidable team, but without Kawhi Leonard, I can't see them competing for an NBA championship. And it's sad. It's sad for the city of Toronto. It's sad for the country of Canada. But you look at the fact that they still have an NBA championship to look back on. I think no one's really going to hear much complaining out of them for a little while. So Terry Rozier, he has a chance to prove himself. That's all I have to say. He has a chance to prove that he is the player that he's been saying he is. He has a chance to show why he had to sacrifice so much playing behind Kyrie Irving the past couple of years. We saw him play well the year Kyrie Irving was injured in the 2018 NBA playoffs, where the Boston Celtics took the Cleveland Cavaliers and LeBron James 7 games, and they lost in Game 7 in Boston. But Terry Rozier played great that series. You know, he was able to show his athleticism, he was able to show his playmaking, and he was able to show, most importantly, his scoring ability. And I thought there wasn't much of a drop-off in the team's ability when Kyrie Irving got injured. I was concerned because I didn't think they were going to get back by the Bucks that series, and that's when Terry Rozier was able to show. He was able to take it to a defender like Eric Bledsoe and sort of poke fun at him, called him Drew Bledsoe, the former New England Patriots quarterback, Dallas Cowboys quarterback, Buffalo Bills quarterback, Drew Bledsoe, which is funny because he has the same last name as Eric Bledsoe. But the fact that Terry Rozier was able to develop that sort of reputation as Scary Terry, I think that was pretty cool, and I'm happy for him. I'm glad he got paid. He's now with the Charlotte Hornets. They ended up doing a sign-and trade with him and Kemba Walker. There were a lot of sign-and trades this year, so I'm assuming I have to do more research on it, but I'm assuming that sign-and trades are better for franchises financially or something, or better for players financially. For some reason, sign-and trades are good for the NBA, so I'm gonna have to do more research. I'm gonna see why they're so good, because I'm obviously still enraged by the DAngelo Russell fit and the DAngelo Russell trade. So, I just hope that I'm just hoping that Terry Rozier is able to prove himself, and he's able to take a Charlotte Hornets team who now needs a leader. They need someone to come in and play well for them, and I hope he's that guy. Second to last guy I have on here is JJ Redick. It's sad to see him leave Philly. He fits so well with everyone else. He was such an important part of their team. He broke the Philly record for threes in a season last year. And it's just great to see how the market for a guy like him has just skyrocketed. Because you look back early in JJ Redick's career, it was hard for him to find work. He played for the Magic. He played for the Clippers. It was hard for him to find a team to where he could serve as an effective player. And he found that perfect fit in Philly, where he could just catch and shoot threes all day. They can hide him on defense. He didn't have to worry about defense too much. He hasn't really worried about defense too much his entire career. But he's just such a great shooter and such an effective guy, because he has a never-ending motor to just run around the court all day. It's sad to see him leave, but I understand it. I get it. He wanted to get paid, went to the Pelicans. He'll be a great fit there, just like he was in Philly, and I just wish him nothing but the best. All right, now Derrick Rose decided to sign with the Pistons. He's the last guy I'm going to talk about in this episode. It's getting a little long. I think this will end up being my longest episode. Derrick Rose, I think the Pistons, as well as Derrick Rose, they needed each other. They were hoping. I'm hoping he can return to an all-star level. He's still a starting point guard in this league, and he's now paired with a guy who's very similar to him, Blake Griffin. Back in 2012, people would have lost their minds if Derrick Rose and Blake Griffin ended up on the same team. You look back at the NBA 2K13 cover with Derrick Rose, Blake Griffin, and Kevin Durant on it, and you saw three ascending superstars in the NBA. And while Blake Griffin and Kevin Durant have gone on to still play at an all-star level, Derrick Rose has sort of dropped off because of his injuries into sort of that starting point guard tier in terms of players in the NBA, which is no big deal. It's not like he's losing any money over it, but he could have been a lot better than what he is today if he hadn't gotten injured, and it's just sad to see. So I'm hoping he will continue to work and fight as long as he's able to play in the NBA. I hope that he stays on a roster, and it's great to see him come back and play at such a high level last season, where he averaged, I think it was 18 points. He was able to score 50 points in a game. I'm looking forward to watching him play for the Pistons next year. So I'll be back soon with thoughts on the other moves made this offseason, such as the Russell Westbrook and Chris Paul trade. I'm going to talk more about the FIBA World Cup. I'm glad to be back here on this. It took me a little while to get back podcasting, doing what I like to do, talking about the greatest game on earth in basketball. It's just a huge passion of mine, and I thank you for listening throughout this entire episode. You might have to break it up into bits, but this will be a long one. I hope that I continue to provide good content and to continue to speak about what I love, and this is that's pretty much it. I just want to thank you for listening. Please subscribe to my channel. Please look at any of my social medias. That would be much appreciated. And thank you.